Welcome to Robotics and Automation News webinars, where you can be part of a global event without leaving your home or office. Attend our live webinars and communicate directly with influential professionals in your industry.
Hello and welcome to Robotics and Automation News. My name is Abdul Montakim. I'm editor of the website. In this interview, I speak to Russel Aldridge, CEO and co-founder of SISU Cinema Robotics, and Michael Morgan, marketing coordinator at SISU Cinema Robotics. Like many people, I've always dreamed of making movies. Not that I have enough talent to do so, but I haven't had the money so far. And although I've done very limited video productions over the course of my career, I can appreciate the idea of using robots to do the camera work. It really opens up new ideas and new technical possibilities that weren't there before, as Russell and Mike explain in the video.
My name is Mike Morgan. I am a head of marketing here at SISU. So all things marketing, I've got a small team. So we take care of the website, social media, working with our PR team, all of the above, just trying to get our product out there.
I'm Russel Aldridge. I'm the CEO of SISU, also the janitor, do a lot of different things, in charge mainly of business development here at SISU and the different robotic product lines that we have. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's a very interesting company, and yeah, I'm particularly interested in it. Like millions of other people, I've always had dreams of making visual material, let's say, whether it's TV shows or films even. That would be the highest, kind of art form, I suppose, if you like. What kind of, let's start with those kind of big themes. What kind of work has your robotic systems been involved in or been used for over the last, say, year or two?
Yeah, good question. So our cinema product has been around for about 2 years. So in that time, we've done a lot of commercial type stuff. Most of our customers are small to medium size video production companies. So a lot of commercial type videos, music videos, as well as, we've been on TV shows, HBO Max TV shows, Discovery, and a few other ones. So we've got a feature film coming likely later this year that we'll be working on. And yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah. Russell, if you don't mind giving your perspective, maybe you could talk about the systems themselves, how they were developed. Are they different for different kind of scenarios for TV or film? What kind of technical aspects are worth highlighting or interesting about your system?
Yeah, sure. So cinema robots they've really been around for a long time, more than 30 years. And that's kind of how these came about. Is we've been doing industrial robotics, but when we came up with this way of making robots just in general a lot easier to use, we said, let's put an iPad in one hand and a game controller in the other hand, and the robot will follow your hand, and we'll be able to train anybody how to use this thing in under an hour. They won't have to be a robotics expert. So we brought in a cinematographer to do a video about it, and he said, my goodness, this is so easy to use. Have you ever thought about putting a camera on the end of the robot? And we argued, we didn't think anybody did that. And he said, no, people do it, but they just don't like it. It's kind of a necessary evil for these, these movies and these commercials. So there's certain shots you can only get with a robot. And so they deal with how hard it is to use and to program. And so we put up some of these on Instagram. We sold a number of them. We thought maybe this is a thing. So we really completely revamped the product line, created a very purpose-built machine that could be used by anybody. So it's really the same machine that's used by a two-person video production company as is used by a big Hollywood film crew. which is what makes it so neat. We're really democratizing robots so that anybody can use it.
Mm. Okay, well, let's go to if you don't mind, I'll go to the website, and I've also located or found a video on YouTube that your channel has. Mike, if you don't mind maybe guiding me through the website and talking about the systems that are on display here.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So that one that is pictured there, that is our C14 model. We've got 4 different models, which you'd see down below. And this is the second largest. It's got a reach of 1.4 meters, which comes out to 6.5 feet or so. And so the smallest one would be just over a meter reach. That's the C11 there. All the way to the right end, that's a C31. So that's a reach of 3.1 meters. So the whole wingspan is over 20 feet. Of course, there's a bunch of trade-offs, and it depends on what a customer or client needs for their shot. But we've got a range of options for ranges, as well as that track that you see there. You can put a robot on a track. The track is modular, so you can add as many sections as you want. And as you can imagine, that really extends the range that you can get from these robots.
Okay. Russell, it just looks absolutely brilliant in terms of the technical achievement. I mean, I can see that device on the left there. That reminds me of when my kids were very young. I bought them a Nintendo Wii. That reminds me of that. How did you build this system? It looks really quite advanced.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, a lot of people say that. They say it's just like the nunchuck on the Wii system, and it is. Here's the thing: is that everybody who's going to be using robots these days have grown up playing video games, and so they're so familiar with these kinds of tools. If you give somebody a computer console and say you're going to be programming text-based programs, you got to have your semicolons in the right spot. No, nobody wants to do that. But if you can put this controller in there. So basically what we do is we give them this game controller. When they squeeze the trigger, it's like they're reaching out and grabbing a hold of the camera, and they can just move that camera wherever they want and point it wherever they want. It's really fun to, it used to be directors would sit there and tell the robot programmer, I want the camera over here and looking like this. And, half an hour later, they've got to move. We actually put this controller in the director's hands sometimes and let them move the camera where they want it. So it's just very intuitive, speeds things up a lot.
Okay, well, Mike, if you could tell me what kind of, I mean, I know you said these look like marketing videos and things, but what kind of potential do you see going forward? I mean, there's a lot of people using, a lot of people have YouTube video channels that I imagine just sit in front of a stationary camera and do their recording, or just use the webcam on their computers, and so on. Is there a market in that for you there, with the sort of video bloggers, thousands upon thousands of video bloggers, or is this too expensive for that type of, individual kind of one-man band operation?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think Russ might be better at answering that one.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. You're absolutely right. I mean, what's really interesting about technology is that as it gets more simple, it comes down in price, gets more simple, it's more accessible to people. So yes, that is something that we're looking at. This particular one, for the YouTube crowd, it really is out of reach. It's pretty expensive. But there's a lot of things that we've created here that could be applicable to the the YouTubers, and so it is an area that we're definitely looking at.
I know that from some sort of, I mean, obviously I've watched films all my life, and I've heard that a lot of innovation happens in filmmaking. So I believe, I'm not sure, but I believe the Steadicam was either invented or developed by Kubrick, which on one of the films, I think it was The Shining. I can't remember which film it was, but these kind of innovations or similar kind of innovations happen. The robot and the robot itself. I mean, did you actually build a robot, or is it from a company like, I don't know, Fanuc or one of the established robot makers, or did you build the hardware yourself?
So the robot arm itself it's a KUKA arm.
Okay.
You know, they've been building robots for 20, 30, 40 years. I don't know how long, but they've really got a great product. So we take their arm and their controller, and we just integrate on top of it. We add our tablet and the wand and some other hardware to make it a turnkey solution for these cinema customers.
And the level of sound, the audio, I imagine, I mean, I've heard or I've been to shows where I've seen robots being in operation. Sometimes they can be quite noisy. I mean, does that affect the filming, and does the audio have to sort of take account of that, or the mics are good enough to ignore the sounds that the robot is making with its movements?
Yeah, that's a great question. So definitely at higher speeds, those servo motors will start to hum, and you can start to hear that. So that is something to take into consideration for sure. Most of the shoots that I've been on where we have an actor who's mic'd up, or maybe there's a boom or something, the moves that we've done have been slower moves, and it hasn't really been an issue. They'll often take I forget the term that they use, but they'll basically say everybody's silent on set, and we'll just run the moves. So they've got the audio of the robot sounds, and they can take that and they can actually cancel it out in the final track. So there's a few different things to consider there, and a few different things that they can do to work around that.
Yeah, there's a company called Genesis Robotics, which has come up with a completely different type of actuation system or something, which is doesn't use teeth in its gears, and it's a lot less. Theoretically, it's a lot less noisy, and I was kind of curious as to whether that will find its way into robots. But theoretically, you could use any robot. It doesn't have to be a KUKA. It's probably, I don't know if you've customized it to your, have you customized it to your requirements, or is it more or less the same as it came from the factory?
The arm itself?
Yeah.
I don't think we do much to it.
We do a couple of little things to it, but mostly it's from the factory.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's really the controls that make the difference. So, KUKA is a great company. They make a solid product. They make something that's really designed to be used by engineers and robot technicians. And so we wanted something that would take advantage of the powerful tools that KUKA offers, but package it in a way that's more familiar to artists and to cinematographers.
Yeah, so the KUKA arm is obviously very expensive, and I know from some sort of digging, Red cameras are extremely expensive as well. So this looks like a very expensive system, and that's not even including the I don't know what you call this, the pedestal or pedestal. You call it a mobile pedestal. I've seen tracks in some of the images on this website. Is it possible to put it on? You know what they call an autonomous mobile robot? KUKA has this wheeled robot at the bottom. Well, they've developed systems where they have this wheeled robot at the bottom, and a robotic arm on top, perched on top. So it's a complete sort of mobile system. I mean, that's, I don't know if you've got something like that, but I'd imagine that's something that might be useful or interesting to you. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a great question. So there are a number of ways to move robots around. You see it in the industrial setting all the time. One of the challenges, so there's the track. You've got one of the challenges with moving a robot around in the real world is just that it's so unrepeatable, right? Getting it to take the exact same path every single time. What the track offers is that we're still able to keep that, kind of sub-millimeter repeatability. And so one of the things that motion control is used for a lot is to do what they call editing in layers. And so the camera will follow a certain path, and then they'll put some things into the frame or take them out and run that same move again. And they'll do it again and again and again. And then they can edit those in layers. And so it looks like these things are magically popping or fading in and out of the frame. And because the camera takes the same path every time, that's what makes that possible. If you have something with wheels that's kind of moving over uneven ground and it's more or less taking a similar path, but not exactly the same, it makes that more difficult to do.
Yeah, minute movements can be seen on the camera. So yeah, I'd imagine track is a smoother operation for you. So what's the future from your point of view, so Russell? I don't know if you can share any business numbers or anything like that, but I imagine that you're one of the few companies that are actually in this sector. I don't know that many. I've probably come across one or two others over the last few years. So I guess competition is at the moment limited. But is there what do you think? I mean, I think there's a big market for it. And obviously one of the questions is whether how the system compares to a human cameraman. But yeah, well, give us your business overview outlook, if you like, over the next few years.
Yeah, I think it kind of goes back to that video production, right? I mean, robots have been the purview of the big Hollywood studios for a really long time. But now all of that's kind of getting turned on its head with, as you mentioned, all the YouTubers out there that just do some pretty incredible work. Our vision has always been to be kind of the everyman robot. Give a robot to somebody that can help them, one, make incredible content, but also just reduce the time that it takes to make some of the stuff that they're already doing. So again, as we can bring prices down, as we can bring more of these features to people to help them, to help kind of video production make content like the big Hollywood studios, that's what we really want to do. Mike, any thoughts?
Just that one thing that I love about the cinema industry is how quickly they adopt new technology. And we've seen that in the last year or two, even with virtual production, as they're calling it. So if you've seen Mandalorian, for example, the way they did that is their studio is made up of basically a bunch of TV screens, all the walls. And they track the camera and they project onto those walls a virtual scene. And so this is really the direction that production is going in Hollywood as well, even in these smaller studios. There's just so much you can do with them. You can shoot in Antarctica and Miami in the same day, basically, right? You can shoot all these different locations. There's just a ton of flexibility and capabilities that you get with virtual production. And robots are a great way to interface with that. Not only do you get the repeatable motion, but robot always knows where it is, so it can tell you right where the camera is. Just with these virtual effects, these VFX and these virtual worlds. Robots.
Is this the Mandalorian that you're referring to?
Yeah.
That
whole series. There's actually a video that shows how they did it, and it's pretty mind blowing what they've been able to do, and the how cinematic it is and how real it looks, because everything you see behind these characters they're just TV screens projecting that virtual world onto those screens.
So your robots were used for part of this production, were they?
No, so I guess I should clarify that. No, we weren't involved in this production at all, but I just mentioned this because this is kind of the direction things are going, and robots are really good at interfacing with this type of production. So I think that's kind of the future of both the industry, the cinema industry, and the future of robots in cinema is virtual production.
Yeah, I think the other thing I would add is just that as the cinema industry it's so cool, and the people that are in it are just really scrappy, and they come up with some really neat ideas. We're always amazed to see it, how the ways that people use our product, and we get such great ideas from them. They'll say, I love this, I did this thing, but I'd love to have this other, this other gadget or this other thing. And so those are the kind of things that we're listening to and building. We just learned so much from our customers who are on the front line doing really cool work. So I think most of the ideas in the future, just as we've seen, things like Wikipedia and all the crowdsourcing, most of the ideas come from those folks on the front lines, and we just do our best to put it into reality.
Yeah, I mean, traditionally, one always, when you see documentaries about how a film was made or a TV show was made, you always see a camera with a human behind it operating it. I think increasingly you're going to see cameras on their own being operated by robots or within some sort of automated system, and that's why I think this kind of business is set for quite a lot of growth. I think it depends on a number of factors. I mean, I'm not a businessman, but I suppose with high-end production, money is not always an object. Which actually reminds me to ask you, is your deal with KUKA as an exclusive one, or can you use different kinds of robots?
We can use other kinds of robots. So we can do that. We don't do that right now. We use KUKA at the moment exclusively for a couple of reasons. They make a great robot. It's very precise. We've compared it to a few other robot brands, and the repeatability is excellent. The way that they allow us to control the robot and some of the things that we can do there, we just can't do with some other robot brands. So that's primarily why we use KUKA.
Interesting. There are obviously, as you know, lots of other types of robots, and there are ones that are called collaborative robots, which are, I don't want to, I'm not saying anything bad about KUKA. It's probably one of the world's biggest robot companies, and certainly very successful. But there are collaborative robot makers who have, should we say, less expensive models, I think, and they're doing quite good business as well. So it'd be interesting to see how your company develops. Do you have this is your video running? I don't know if Mike, you want to talk us through it, but do you have competitors that you look at now? Is it just early days for this particular industry where competitors don't really see each other or meet each other or come into any sort of direct competition?
Yeah, we definitely, I mean, we're not the first to develop a cinema robot, or Cinebot as they're called. So there's a couple of competitors out there, and they make great products too. But we've tried to really simplify things and speed things up on set. So that's kind of the corner of the market we're trying to attack, and and just make it more accessible so you don't have to be a trained, robot technician to be able to operate this thing. So just put it in the hands of your everyday, director or DP. I'm not saying that it's automatic, right? It's not instant where you can just, after a couple of minutes, program this crazy shot. It does take some, a little bit of training and probably a couple of days of just playing around with it to really get comfortable with it. But as compared to, weeks or months of getting used to a competitor product, it's a big difference.
Yeah, you just say crazy shot. I was looking at some of this is obviously your promotional video, and some of the shots were very nice, very fluid, kind of flowed very well. The sudden sort of change of perspective, it was very interesting. And I can imagine that this kind of technology would enable directors or cinematographers specifically to use to get those crazy shots, different angles, weird angles that you just can't get a human into, So
Yeah,
I don't know if you've seen examples of that or anything, but certainly that's what interests me when I see films. It's the cinematography. That's the main thing I look at: camera angles, how the length of the shot, the different angles, tracking shots as they used to call them in the old days.
Yeah, for
Do you
sure.
see that with your customers, some of them?
Oh, absolutely. There's a few main benefits, I guess, of using a robot. And speed is a big deal. Repeatability is a big deal. Being able to integrate with VFX is a big deal. But really, what's the most popular is just what you mentioned, the dynamic shots that you can get. A human operator can only be so precise, and he can only move in certain ways, and that goes for other rigs as well. But with the robot, you've got 6 degrees of freedom. You got control over all of them, as well as focus and zoom. So the things that you can do, it's been interesting to watch some of our customers kind of take a step back and realize, we got to think about this differently. Like, we got to open our minds to this new world that is that's possible now. We're not confined to these movements side to side or front to back. We can do anything we want with this thing.
And I think one thing to add to that is, and maybe this is best illustrated with a story. So one of our first customers, we sent them the robot, and we called them a little while later and said, are you able to get these cool shots that you can only do with a robot? And they said, yes, we are, which is great. But what we didn't expect, which is maybe even better, is that all the stuff that we used to do before, we can now do a whole lot faster. They said there's a job that we do every month. It usually takes 3 or 4 days. They said we get that job done now in an afternoon, because the robot is so fast to move, so easy to use, that it has become our tripod. It's our slider, it's our jib, it's all these other things that just speed up production. An example is, on this video, there's a part where they're flipping the cookie and it lands in the milk, right? Previously, they'd have somebody following that as best they could with a handheld camera, and somebody else flipping it, and it would just take 100 takes to get that right. It'd take a really long time. Well, now you've got the camera moving repeatedly every single time, and maybe you've got a solenoid that flips the cookie. You perfectly control the timing, and you get that dialed in 3 or 4 takes, and you're on to the next thing. So for a company that where getting that footage into the can as quickly as possible, moving on to the next customer is so important, this becomes an indispensable piece of technology for them.
Yeah, all right. Well, last question I can't help asking. Do you this may be an old-fashioned question. I remember many years ago, there was kind of a very, in this country anyway, in the UK, there was kind of a what they call a closed shop here in terms of unions. Kind of only if you're a union member you can get certain jobs, and if you weren't, you couldn't. I mean, this potentially would probably put a lot of camera people out of work. You know, is that something that, I mean, it's probably too early days to consider it for yourself, but if it does take off, you are talking about a lot of camera people that won't be needed anymore. Is that an issue? Do you ever come across that? Is that a conversation for you at any point?
You know, it's a great question. It's a great issue, and it comes up in robotics all the time, right? All the time. What's interesting is if you step back and look at robotics as a whole, as the number of robots in all industries, as the number of robots that is shipped goes up, you know, you'd almost expect to see the number of jobs going down, but it's not what we see. We see the number of jobs climbing. And actually, you know, you look at this cycle, and over time, robots has had this cycle like this. Well, as robots goes up, jobs goes up. When robots go down, jobs go down. And it's really interesting because robots allow people to do things even faster than they were able to do it before. As a result, businesses can get more work done. So they're hiring more people in lots of different areas, right? For their business. They hire more people in shipping and accounting and all these other things. And so their businesses actually grow when they have a robot. Now, if you go to, okay, but specifically the camera operator, right? That's great that, you know, we've got somebody else in accounting, but what about the camera operator? And it's a great question. But what we've seen, camera operators make great robot operators too. It's actually, we found that it's easier to take someone who knows cinema and teach them how to use this robot that's easy to use than it is to take a robot expert and try to teach them everything they need to know about cinema. And so again, these camera operators just, they're still indispensable to the process. They're still needed. Their craft is still so important. And they actually tell us, this makes my craft better. I'm able to do things that I just couldn't do before.
Yep.
That's a very interesting perspective. Mike, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, the one thing I'll add, you know, I've been an operator myself of one of these robots for almost 2 years now, and so that's when I go on set, like that's what I do is I operate the robot. There's still, you know, your camera operators. There's still there is the opportunity in smaller sets, for example, or smaller productions where, you know, this is a tool that if you're like a one-man show, for example, you got your own little studio, it's really handy to be able to use. But for these larger productions, and even the smaller ones, it's not really taking jobs. You still need your camera operator. You still have your assistants and everything who have to perform their jobs. So it's really just another tool that you can put in your tool belt.
Yeah, I don't think we've had any of our customers say, because of this robot, we got rid of these people. They've said we've got the same crew, but because of this robot, we're just able to do more things and at the end of the day, be more profitable.
Yeah.
More productive. Yeah. More productive, more efficient. Yeah. I can see that. I can see the sense of it. I mean, yeah, as I say, it's always a dream to make this kind of thing. It's probably still the most creatively satisfying, rewarding kind of activity in that we know of, moving images and capturing, nice moving images. Yeah.
And yeah, that's the other thing is video is becoming the main, the main media out there. It was photos for a while, but now, just about any advertising is going to have some form of video. So, and it's just going to keep heading that way. So,
yeah, I'll be interested to see how this kind of thing affects the cinema industry in particular. I recently watched the James Bond film, the new James Bond film. And some of the cinematography in that, as you can imagine, the stunt work and things like that, you had very spectacular, epic sort of camera angles, very wide camera angles showing the stunts and things like that. And I'm curious how they did those kind of things. But I imagine those are the kind of areas where robots will come into their own. And as you say, you don't want to do more than a few takes of such an expensive, setup if you can help it in those scenarios. So yeah. All right. Well, how long have you been going then? How long has SISU been going?
SISU's been in business for almost 12 years, doing, really high-end robotics for a number of different industries. On the cinema side, it's really been about 3 years that we've been working on this.
And what were the other industries that you provided robots for, robotic systems for?
Oh, we do a number of things, really focused on cinema right now. That's the biggest one. We do a really cool machine for the food production industry where we have robots that sharpen knives automatically. We've done some fun trade show demos and things for some of the big tech companies. We've been involved in semiconductor, pharmaceutical, some oil and gas, some energy, just a lot of different things. But again, really our focus is on cinema and making robotic arms just very easy to use.
Okay. All right. Well, it's been fascinating talking to you. Thank you very much for your time. I wish you all the best with your system. I look in occasionally on the website and see how you're getting along. I'm sure everything will go well. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we appreciate it. You've asked great questions. Thanks so much for having us.
Is there something else that you want to add that I didn't ask about?
One thing we didn't really talk about, I mean, I kind of talked about the robots, the different sizes and everything, but another thing that I think is really cool that our development team has done is they've actually built our software called SISU Lab from the ground up. And I think you're on that webpage there for a second, the SISU Lab webpage. And it's really cool to be able to say, hey, we've got a lot of requests for this feature and see them, within a really short period of time, be able to build that in and release that feature. So we've got a team of, 25 engineers or so, hardware and software. And I think that's one of the really cool things about our company is how fast we're able to implement new features and new products.
So with this system, you're basically kind of using this interface. You're telling the camera or the robot rather different angles, when to zoom in and out, or when to focus on what and things. There are lots of things that you can program into this, not program as in code, but you can sort of
right. Yeah. If you see in that image there, there's some different channels, and you just set keyframes, basically a waypoint, and we've kind of designed this to be very intuitive and familiar to the cinema industry, right? This is a lot like the Adobe Premiere or After Effects software that is so popular. So you set these waypoints in your different channels, and the robot or SISU Lab does all the calculations, all the math to figure out that nice smooth path that you're looking for.
And so if you want to add other things in there too, if you've got, you want to throw a shoe up in the air, or you want to throw a donut and then launch some sprinkles, and this is the timeline. You just drag things around until you get the timing exactly how you want it.
Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Yeah, well, as I say, it's a fascinating area of technology. I mean, I can see. I do a little bit of video editing in Final Cut Pro, this kind of thing, where I just take out the superfluous or technical problems from the video. But it's obviously nothing like this. I'd love to be able to do this kind of work, and maybe one day I'll get a client who asks me to do ad work and give me lots of money, and I can afford this kind of system to do it.
if you're ever in Austin, you should swing by and we'll let you get your hands on it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it'd be great. I'd love to come to America. I was supposed to come before the pandemic, but that not before the pandemic. I booked to come and see a client in Texas, actually, and Michigan as well. But the coronavirus ended all that thing. But yeah, if I ever come, I'll definitely look you up and see how
Okay.
things are going for you. I'd love to have a go on it as well, on the robot.
Yeah, that'd be great. All right, where are you located?
I'm in the UK. I was in London for most of my life, but I've moved up north now. It's very cold up here in the north of England, but yeah, that's where I am.
Cool. Okay.
Great. Well, you're invited anytime.
Thank you very much. All right. Well, take care of yourself, and thanks again for your time.
All right.
Cool.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Send us an email at sales@roboticsandautomationnews.com to register for one of our many upcoming webinars. And if you'd like us to host your webinar, we have a range of options, including long-term lead generation packages and marketing campaigns. We look forward to hearing from you soon.